Welcome to Postcards Between Pages, where we journey to places where stories come alive and the landscape speaks with the echoes of literary giants. Today we're mailing you an audio postcard straight from Bangor, Maine, home to S.K. Tours and the heart of Stephen King's legendary world. Today we'll traverse the eerie streets and storied landmarks that inspired the King of Horror, listen to tales and whispers from beyond the page, and unravel how Bangor's soul has shaped the nightmares and dreams of readers across the globe. Picture a crisp morning in Bangor, the Queen City of Maine. Your breath mingles with a persistent mist, and every red brick and looming Victorian home seems to hold a secret. Now imagine stepping aboard a black van, its windows lightly fogged, joining fellow constant readers for an adventure through the real-life Derry, a place where fiction and reality blend at every intersection. S.K. Tours of Maine isn't just another sightseeing ride. It's a fully immersive, expertly narrated pilgrimage for fans of Stephen King and literary travelers alike. Founded by veteran bookseller and local legend Stu Tinker, and now run by his son Jamie and wife Jennifer, S.K. Tours has spent decades guiding visitors through the sights that intrigued King's horror-laced imagination. The tour's reputation echoes far beyond Maine, with over 1,500 five-star reviews on TripAdvisor and features in major media outlets. S.K. Tours has become a must-do attraction for anyone tracing the footsteps of one of America's most influential storytellers. The route winds through Bangor's winding streets, revealing places both iconic and hidden, a mix of the everyday and the haunted, tailored for those who long to slip into the shadowy underbelly of King's fiction. Each stop weaves together King's biography, the lineage of his characters, local legends, and astonishing, sometimes hilarious anecdotes from the life of Maine's prodigal son. Stops include King's famous Victorian mansion, with its bat and spider-adorned iron fence, a site of fan pilgrimages and real-life inspiration for Derry's spooky ambiance, and the unassuming storm drain that inspired one of literature's most terrifying scenes. In the hands of S.K. Tours guides, each stop is more than a photo opportunity. The standpipe, looming like a century over the city, isn't just a water tower. It's the setting of utter dread, where fiction and geography are forever entangled. On Union and Jackson, Jamie arranges props, a red balloon, a paper boat, maybe even a clown's glove on the curb, to let tourgoers step into one of King's most infamous nightmares. At Mount Home Cemetery, the guide's voice often grows softer. It's where King wandered, notebook in hand, the air heavy, sometimes enough that you'd swear it's carrying echoes from Pet Sematary. He saw the sadness, children gone too soon, pets loved and lost, and spun it into the stuff of legend. What truly sets S.K. Tours apart isn't just the encyclopedic knowledge of King trivia, it's the stories within the stories. The tour guides are steeped in Bangor's lore, sharing personal tales that blend the real and the surreal. We once had a couple get engaged right outside the Red Gate, Jamie recalls. The next year they came back and got married here. Steve and Tabitha live private lives, but their presence here is real, and it brings people together in all sorts of unexpected ways. The guides pepper every stop with connections to King's philanthropy. The library supported, the ball fields endowed, the countless scholarships for local youth. King isn't just Bangor's most famous export. He and Tabitha are devoted patrons whose generosity underpins many city institutions. Guests of the tours often note the warmth and inclusiveness. One reviewer wrote, "I loved the tour so much the first time, I went back a second. Jamie is very knowledgeable as well as entertaining." Another guest reflected, "Even my husband, who has never read a King book in his life, thoroughly enjoyed learning about him for 3 hours. The atmosphere our guide created, cozy, friendly, and incredibly accommodating, sold me. We will definitely be back again." For over 4 decades, Bangor has been the spine of King's haunted map, a city lovingly disguised as Derry, Castle Rock, or Jerusalem's Lot. Yet its architecture, soul, and history ripple through his prose with fierce clarity. When King and his family moved to Bangor in 1980, he chose not just a house, but a stage. Nestled among mansions once owned by lumber barons, King's home immediately became a creative crucible. In his office above the carriage house, he wrote some of his most iconic works, including It, Insomnia, and Bag of Bones. Even today, as King and his wife spend more time at their home in Florida, the fused specter of Derry and Bangor endures as a living literary character. Bangor's streets, rough-edged but alive, provided King with the canvas to paint tales of ordinary horrors. The city's shadowy corners, working-class bars, mist-cloaked riverbanks, and imposing architecture become in his hands not mere settings, but protagonists. Perhaps the emotional heart of S.K. Tours and of King's legacy in Bangor is the house at 47 West Broadway. Even from the sidewalk, its brick facade, wrought iron fence bristling with bats and spiders, and lopsided whimsical towers seem lifted from the pages of a Gothic novel. But visitors should know the King's home is a private property. No one is allowed inside, and the interior is reserved for archives and soon a writer's retreat for emerging authors. Still, fans come from across the globe to snap their photo by the gate, hoping for a glimpse of King's legendary dog Molly or the fleet glow of a desk lamp in the evening gloom. The house is now set to become the Stephen King archive, safeguarding his original manuscripts, letters, and memorabilia, fostering literary creation for a new generation. As Jamie gently reminds every group, please take your pictures and pay your respects. But remember, King is our neighbor first and a legend second. We're here to honor both. Guides encourage the listeners to absorb the city's atmosphere, the sticky green twilight of the barrens, the glint of autumn light atop the standpipe. It's a masterclass in how settings become characters in their own right, how Bangor's stubborn, generous, sometimes haunted personality seeps into every King novel set in Derry or beyond. A typical SK tour spans nearly 3 hours and takes guests to 20 to 30 distinctly King-centric sites, mixing glimpses of film locations with the stories behind the stories. Whether you're eager for spooky lore or a deeper look at the King's family imprint on Bangor, the guides adapt each session to guest interests, weaving anecdotes about real life, local events, King's favorite haunts, and the vivid line between author and city. One moment you might be hearing about the origins of the Pet Sematary tale, and the next, standing outside the very house that once was the site of a marriage proposal. Most of the terror in King's novels comes not from the supernatural, but from the turning of the ordinary into the uncanny. Bangor's not just a home, it's his muse. Reviewers consistently praise the intimacy and expertise of the tour. One guest raved that Jamie's knowledge of all things King is phenomenal. This tour exceeded expectations. If you're thinking you can do your own tour, don't. Spend your time with SK Tours instead. It's well worth it. Another wrote that the tour takes you to places where the lines between real life and King's fictional Derry blur. I came away with a new appreciation for both the man and the city. SK Tours of Maine averages 5-star reviews at an astounding rate, thanks not only to their behind-the-scenes access, but also to the charisma and care of the guides. Common themes among their testimonials include the infectious passion of the guests who are dedicated fans that just so enjoy sharing stories, the breadth of knowledge from the deep cuts about King's minor characters to the personal observations about life in Bangor, the welcoming, cozy atmosphere, and the information about King's philanthropic involvement that humanizes the master of horror into a beloved neighbor. Visitors often return, sometimes multiple times, and recommend the tour to both diehard and newcomers curious about how literature transforms the place. Reviewers spotlight specific anecdotes, from staged Pennywise appearances to impromptu literary trivia sessions on Bangor's winding streets, and even emotional moments outside the King House where visitors leave notes or quietly reflect on the legacy of a living legend. Meeting a guide for SK Tours is like stepping into a King short story. Each one possesses a gift for narrative twists, timing, and the gentle blending of fact and legend. Stu Tinker, the founder, set the tone with a blend of deep fandom and local pride. After decades as a bookseller and limousine driver for the rich and famous, often including King himself, Stu is known for both his encyclopedic knowledge and his generosity of spirit. After Stu's retirement, his son Jamie, raised on King stories in the backstreets of Bangor, infused the tour with a new energy and an obsessive attention to detail. Jamie works hard to personalize each experience, drawing guests into the lore with props, games, and spontaneous history lessons. His infectious enthusiasm turns newcomers into constant readers. According to audience testimonials, both guides excel at one-on-one engagement, memorable humor, and adapting the narrative to suit every group, be they seasoned King scholars or tourists just seeking stories on a fall afternoon. Bangor's transformation into literary terrain would be notable even without King's outsized influence. But King's effect on world literature and pop culture is even more profound, spanning 5 decades and forging an entirely new direction for modern horror and suspense. Bangor's atmosphere, part working-class realism, part gothic grandeur, seeps into King's works in countless ways. The Barrens emerge as both refuge and haunting ground. The standpipe blooms as a symbol of both public service and supernatural menace. Real locales root King's cosmic battles in the concrete, lending authenticity to even his wildest creations. To say Stephen King shaped modern horror is an understatement. His deft, intimate exploration of fear, situating monsters in suburbs, trauma in family rooms, and loss in familiar streets, revolutionized how we engage with the uncanny in our fiction. King's accessible, colloquial style has inspired generations of authors, not just in horror, but also in fantasy, literary fiction, and young adult writing. Literary luminaries cite King as foundational. Victor LaValle describes learning to tell stories and to craft his reality onto King's narrative forms. From bookshelves to screenplays, King forged a path for genre writing to be both artistic and deeply personal. His works have also become cultural touchstones in film and television. Stranger Things, American Horror Story, and countless other series borrow King's knack for mixing nostalgia and horror, small-town charm, and lurking evil. His social themes, such as addiction, trauma, the battle against personal demons, resonate far beyond literary circles. In academia, King is studied for his influence on Gothic form, psychological horror, and the interplay between the fantastic and the everyday world. Few modern writers can claim such reach. Over 60 novels, hundreds of short stories, more than 40 film and TV adaptations, and a place in the hearts of readers from every walk of life. Bangor and the larger Maine community have gained as much from King as the literary world has. Through the Stephen and Tabitha King Foundation, millions of dollars flow to libraries, scholarships, hospitals, and social projects. The Kings are deeply involved in their adopted hometown, supporting everything from Little League teams to cultural festivals. Their presence is tangible, not just in haunting stories, but also in playgrounds, theaters, and community groups that flourish due to their largesse. King's birthday, even when he's not in town, often sparks citywide celebrations, Halloween carnivals, and parades of pets dressed as Pennywise. The SK tour guides are always ready with the latest local events, ensuring guests can experience Bangor as a living, breathing community as well as a setting for stories. As dusk gathers over Bangor and the shadows lengthen, the SK Tours van glides quietly down a tree-lined street. The tour has been more than a roster of stops. It is a journey through the imagination, a reminder of fiction's power to transform the everyday. Bangor and SK Tours are proof that place matters, that the lines between memory and story, past and present, ordinary and otherworldly, are as thin as mist on the Pembosque at dawn. For visitors and listeners alike, the Queen City becomes the kingdom of Derry, the setting of horror and hope, loss and community. So here's our postcard to you, horror lovers. We may be saying goodbye for now, but remember, wherever you spot a red balloon or hear a strange noise in the drain, you're never far from King's World. And if you're ever in Bangor, be sure to stop at SK Tours. Thank you for journeying with us on this postcard episode of Postcards Between Pages. Until next time, keep reading, keep wandering, and beware the storm dream at the corner of Union and Jackson. You might just float too.